the first thing I would advise students to do is take both. Just take them both blind, don't prepare for them, and see which one you do better on, and then go from there. Now, one thing I will say about the SAT is it's more of a verbal reasoning test, where the ACT is a little more logical and it focuses more on knowledge and comprehension, where SAT is reasoning and problem solving. And then also the math section on the ACT has a little more advanced math compared to the SAT. And the ACT is also very time intensive compared to the SAT. And then there's a section on the SAT where you can't use a calculator. So ultimately, I would say that the student has to take both blind, see where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and choose the test that works best for them. No, not necessary. The only state that I've seen the ACT is favored over is in Texas with a lot of the private colleges. But overall, I wouldn't say that there's a difference between who favors which one. They just have scores that should correlate. Like if you get a 31 on the ACT, you should have like a 1400 on the SAT. And preferences aren't really given over one or the other. So for each student, I think it's a good idea for them to have, and it depends on their workload, either a daily prep schedule, weekly. It's going to be contingent on what they already have going on in their academic life, social life, family life, and everything. But the main thing is they need to be consistent with their practice and their preparation. And that's the best way to improve their test taking skills is, of course, increase their strengths, work on their weaknesses, because when they do that, they're going to increase their confidence, and that's going to lead to better test scores. So if they do have a schedule that they stick to, they need to set a realistic goal. How much time do they want to spend maybe each day, every other day, and gradually increase their time the more they get comfortable with the material. And of course, the closer they get to the test date, they want to peak at a time and then kind of level that off. And they need to create a study plan, because just taking tests and taking practice tests is not enough. They need to review content. They need to understand any small things that they may be missing that they need to work on. And they have to stick to the routine, and they need to track what they're doing too. They need to track their progress, because sometimes they may have a setback because they had a week where they had a lot of exams at school. So tracking progress. But the one thing I always tell my students is remember that test prep is just part of that overall college application. And it's very important for them to make sure they're still doing their extracurriculars, maintaining their academics, and being involved in community service, and of course, spending time with their family and maintaining their mental health. That also depends on the student. Some students I have seen start before high school, which I don't recommend. But ninth grade is a good starting point, like maybe the summer before ninth grade of maybe taking like a pre-ACT or an Aspire, just to kind of see where these students lie with test taking, because a lot of students may have test anxiety. And I think sometimes if they prepare too much or start too early, it can start to give them test anxiety, and that can defeat the purpose. So I think that every parent needs to look and see where their child is maybe every semester, and maybe give them a test ninth grade, second semester, then in the summertime. And then once they get, of course, to the 10th and 11th grade, they need to have full preparation. But I think starting too early could be a hindrance for some students, and some students maybe not. It's all very personalized when it comes to that preparation. Yes, this has definitely become a very stressful time for students, and they have to prioritize their mental health They need to set realistic expectations. Everyone is not going to get a perfect score on this test. So they have to look at their performance on maybe a practice test or an official one they took, and always think in their minds that a single test score doesn't define their worth or their intelligence. And they need to make sure they're practicing self-care. They need to prioritize that care by getting enough sleep, which we know teenagers definitely don't do enough of, eating healthy, and engaging in physical activity, going outside, maybe taking a vitamin D supplement, because those activities right there can reduce stress and give them a better overall feeling of their well-being. They also need to take breaks. They have to take some short breaks to improve their focus and concentration. And if it does get to a point where the anxiety is not just coming from testing, then they need to speak with a family member or a mental health professional. And maybe they'll tell them, do some deep breathing, some meditation to help reduce that. And I would say overall, I tell my students, just stay positive, maintain that positive outlook, visualize yourself succeeding on the test, remind yourself of your strong points and your accomplishments, and that this is just part of your college portfolio. So taking care of yourself will help them succeed in other areas of their lives. I think it's an excellent idea, and it was sad that it had to happen because of COVID. Because I've met a lot of students who have 4.9s and bomb their standardized tests. And then we also have students who are underrepresented and maybe go to schools that don't offer, you know, test prep, or their parents don't have the financial means to give them test preparation. So this kind of levels the playing field of a lot of schools becoming test optional. I would say that they are indeed test optional, but for a student who may have a slightly lower GPA than what the cohort that came in the year before has, and they have a higher test score, the school most certainly would look at the test scores, but I don't think that there's like some little hidden secret that they're still taking into account unless the student ask for the results to be taken into account in their portfolio. The best ways I would say to improve test scores would just mainly be to practice. Once you've kind of found out, maybe I'm not good in parts of understanding the function of a paragraph, or my comprehension wanes a little bit when I'm reading a social studies or history passage. Once they can identify those weaknesses, that's where they need to work on the most to improve. But they also have to look at the strategies such as time management, educated guessing, process of elimination, and just being more efficient and more effective with their time management, review content areas where they need improvement. And sometimes a student might have to get help in a particular subject area. And as I always say also, is to stay positive. Oh, yes, lots of improvement. I have students who had baseline scores on the ACT. I had one student of a 17, and she ended up we had to have 6 months of intensive study time, practice, kind of looking at some skill sets that weren't solidified. And she ended up with, I think, a 32 or a 33, and she graduated from Michigan State and with a computer science degree.